Perfect. So welcome everyone in this seventh seminar of the seminar series, Traditional Boats and Maritime Traditions. Today, we are very happy to have with us our presenter, Juan David Sarmiento Rodríguez from the Externado University of Colombia. Today, he's going to give us, in this seminar series, a glimpse outside of the Mediterranean and European world that we've been seeing so far in the seminar series. His presentation has the title, Dual Biography, Knowledge and Practice of Traditional Apalanchi Shipbuilding in La Guajira, Colombian Caribbean. We're very happy that you're here, and the floor is yours, and we're looking forward to see what you have to present for us.
Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Juan David Sarmiento. I am grateful to Catarina for the museum, all the other people for the opportunity to present my research, and one moment in public in the presentation. Yeah, you see the presentation? Okay, perfect. Okay, my investigation and research entitled Dual Biography, Knowledge and Practice of Traditional Apalanchi Shipbuilding in La Guajira, Colombia, Caribbean. And the table on continents and first introductions and the locality in geography and Guayu indigenous community, concept and practice and traditional knowledge, types of boats, dual biography, and finally the conclusions. This is the Guayu people. The traditional shipbuilding and navigation relationship have allowed human through the history to transform and strengthen their social dynamics. We have been developing Project Science in 2017 with my professor, Carlos del Cairo, where we have solved the knowledge and recognized the traditional knowledge of shipbuilding and navigation of the native community of country, in the particular case of the Guayu indigenous community. This is the South America, and the red color is Colombia. In Guayu people in the north in the country, in La Guajira. This case, in the middle Guajira, Pacific, and the Rio Hacha and part in Manaure, son the Guajira. Guayu indigenous community, the Guayu are located in the Guajira Peninsula in north of Colombia and northwest Venezuela in the state of Zulia and the Caribbean Sea. They are currently the largest indigenous ethnic group in the La Guajira Peninsula and in the country in general. The Apalanchi, specific concept Apalanchi, is the men in people of the beach. The word has always been used by the Guayu to design those of their ethnic group who indulge in after coastal art of the peninsula of La Guajira. This is the Apalanchi people in the fishermen in process. The traditional knowledge in generate, preserve, applicable, use it for the traditional community and peoples. The different process and the social knowledge and practice and the art transformates and transferred through the orality and language. The social knowledge and practice, they are in context, environment of surroundings, generates and territorial roots. In the social knowledge and practice are made be converts, agents, and subjects. In the social knowledge and practice, they have an economic and social values. The relationship is the more important. In social knowledge and practice, they develop on defined representation and values. Finally, the social knowledge and practice is the reflecting in the resources and materials from the technogenesis theory and from Kellog's and the when they use team. This case, in specific, human agents and social structure are not the only activity unit of analysis of the social, as no humans are as much a part of the social as human. Physical objects, artifacts, things, technology, animals, and landscape have the potential the intercal socializates with the age older as with humans. The site in the dogwood. Here you can see the different elements in the space, in the boats, in the animals, in the peoples, in the beach. Is the more interesting the relationship in the different elements in the space. Okay, vessel continuity and process. It's the possibility to evidence the continuity of the kernels of constructor and navigation over time from primary sources, which saw the presentation of monoxide boats and launched the stains in 19th and 20th centuries. This is a photography in different elements on the sea, the monoxide boats and the big monoxide boats in the other sail. This is the graphic and other photography, the present on the boats in different parts of La Guajira. In 20th century, in the boats, the different type boats, in the other parts, in the Guajira people. Guayu indigenous of community boats are of the two types. The first, the cayuco, of noa or traditional canoes, and second, the boats also known as chalanas. Okay, in the dual biography, in the more interesting, in material objects are not external supports or measures of international life. Writers, people, and things have mutual biography that develop with a culture. This is concept in the first process. A shipbuilding has mental or physical plans of the types, vessel, hull, and words, and according to the needs of each client. This is the Apalanchi people, in specific, the constructor people in the Guajira. This the Belisario Puchene Piayu, Manuel Uriana, Marco González, Jose Ipuana, y Pinilla Guareyu Ipuana. The different fishermen and constructor traditional boats in the different parts in the Guajira. It's more interesting the process and the constructor. In the process, in the space for constructor specific, the shipbuilder determined of a specific space for the constructor for the vessels. Usually, this place is close to their home and where they have the necessary tools to develop their works. This is three different photography on different space for the construction and the tools in the area in the La Guajira. Raw materials. In previously, the boats were building on red ceiba, but this was changed as the raw material was exhausting, so it led to start working with other wood such as nail woods and accordion exhaustion. Three different materials of different elements for the constructor and boats and to the fishermen. The transformation is other process. A shipbuilding has his whole molds, which in many cases have been inherent in the other crates, according to the characteristic, the wall they give the turbboats, This will be gifts of shares in braziers on trees, which will be the best curves, the frames, which after being cut will decline and polishes. This is the material and the gears the constructor and transformates in materials. Example, in this process, a shipbuilder has his preference. The distribution and age of the pace will determine bit daisy. Generally, the building determine the dimensions of the main plan gills to will with be order of the strain and both two chambers that will determine the height of the same. The inclination of boots will vary according to the diesel in strain and straight bolts. This case in different processes in the constructor and different big and small boats and the different process in the different constructor is more interesting case. Boats instruments and the three elements. The first is the colors. The colors on the boats have a symbolic function for some the Apalanchi people. They are colors, they bring the better look. For other, these colors are characteristic of friend families, seen in some case, it was possibility to observe how they continue replicate the color of both the parent hands. The colors in the boats is more different and the relationship in symbolic elements in the colors in the boats is more important. Second and third element in the name and eyes. The names to the boats will be aware of the boats. They will name after experience, important dates, the name of their children, and etc. In the A's, on boats have two main roles. The first is the help to both recognize the way home, and the second is the able to locate school of fishing. It's more beautiful process and relationship in the boat and fishermen and the sea. This is for case and for photography and the different names and different elements in the boats. Different names, example, El Niño Miguel, Monte de Mar, Christian, La Niña Michelle, and this is case, the eyes in the boats. In the process they use, as previously present, there are too many functions of the most of the boats. The first of this communication, allowing the transforming and other parts of La Guajira, more calmly. The second of the is fishing, with along the coast of La Guajira is establishing as one of the main resource on food and trade. This is the photogrammetry in one boat in La Guajira. In the different elements in process and the fishermen is more important. In more beautiful and big boat. In the use in the other element in the tools in fishermen is more interest and more important in the process. This is other for photogrammetry and the elements and colors and use is more important in the process, the fisherman. Okay. This is the other structure, fisherman. In the Guajira people, in recognize the different types in the Guajira. See, the winters in 8 different elements in the different winter in the sea, in the zone, the La Guajira. In the more and second process in the archaeological site formation. spalling process are defined as all events, activities, and process after the initial using particular types of activity, and this process can be both cultural or non-cultural. Street photography and the sea in different process and archaeological formation sites in the La Guajira. This is the other photogrammetry in the process and reconstructor the process information site archaeological for the different elements constitute the sun. Okay, this is other elements in the boats. In result vessels, the result according with the system context and included activities of recycling and secondary use. In this way, the different elements that make up vessel in their process and determination and abandon and reuse in other object places. It's more interesting as the reuse in other elements in the La Guajira. Okay, in the conclusions and the first, it is necessary to recognize the cross-cutting relationship that exists between the environmentals, animals, objects, and people in this Guayu culture environmentals. And the second, in the consolidation of methodology to understand the biography and traditional boats, vessel of the young world with builders, navigator, and fishermen, in the case in the Apalanchi people. In the to tell about the biography of train boats, in to tell about the culture of Apalanchi, of the Guayu indigenous community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very, very interesting material that you presented to us. It's really amazing, and also all of the research that you've done from the relationships, as you said, between the environment and the people, but also like the use of the boats, how they do the shipbuilding, how the boats end up being even archaeological sites or being reused. It's very holistic and very, very interesting to know what's going on there in the La Guajira in the Colombian Caribbean. First, I would like to open the floor to anyone who has any comments or questions for Juan David. And feel free to either open your camera and microphone and ask the question directly, or put the question in the chat. Does anyone have any questions or comments? No, I mean, maybe I will ask one question that I had about the, I really like the detail that you said about the different colors of the boats, but also the fact that the boats have eyes. That's something that exists in also like ancient Mediterranean culture of shipbuilding. Like the boats had this sort of eyes at that exact level that the boats over there have too. And you said that the different colors had to do with the different families who owned the boats. Was there any also differentiation based on the activity, if it was for transport or fishing, or are all the boats used for both, like any sort of sea activity?
Okay, for my processing in my English living in the traducer, and my friend Jesus Aldana in the help in translate, and this is the archaeological and specialized in archaeological subaquatic.
Yeah, of course, no problem at all.
Okay,
tell me if you want to repeat the question, and I can.
Hi, Caterina. I wrote a couple of things that you said, so I will translate to Juan, and then Juan can answer. the question may be in Spanish or in English, and I will translate it. So, Juan, entonces estaba contando que le gustó mucho lo de los colores, sobre todo porque particularmente lo de los ojos en la construcción naval mediterránea también
Se
se
presenta.
evidencia. Sí, sí, sí. Entonces, en función de eso, que escuchó que usted ha hablado que tenía que ver con las familias, que cada color corresponde a una familia, pero sí también eso se tiene que
Con
ver con
funciones.
algo. O con funciones, exacto. Entonces, quiere saber si también se relaciona algún tipo de funcionalidad o algún tipo de uso de las embarcaciones.
Ok, que los ojos están presentes no en todas las embarcaciones, pero sí en varias, y que los colores están como directamente relacionados más como hacia vínculos familiares, como a gustos y a interpretaciones que se le pueden dar a los colores, pero no hacia las funciones, que las funciones, o en general la mayoría de funciones que tienen todas las embarcaciones, son tanto de pesca como de comunicación. Entonces, como que no hay una distinción por tipología de embarcación, sino que la tipología lo que permite son diferentes alcances en el mar. Las embarcaciones pequeñas están como hacia la costa, o hacia lo que llamaríamos nosotros como la línea continental, la plataforma continental, y las de gran tamaño son para alta mar. Pero que los colores van como por simbolismos y gustos que tienen entre las familias. Y bueno, que lo bonito de los ojos es que le permiten dar vida a las embarcaciones, porque las embarcaciones tienen vida. Entonces esos ojos son ojos que tienen las embarcaciones, para poder ver tanto cómo regresar a casa como dónde pescar.
Ok, entonces voy a traducir si algo al final lo complementamos. Juan was answering that the colors is not only related is not related exclusively with the use or the function of the boats, because it's more related to the things that the families likes, and the different interpretation that they have related for their whole life. So it's not strictly related with that. It's based on mainly because of he was also telling because that the eyes are related with the ship boat, with these boats which are used for fishing, and the main difference is more related with the with the fishermen, and also with these boats which are useful for the transportation to the connection for different regions around the Guajira. So it's more related with this, but he's also saying that maybe one difference related with the use, with the function around this kind of boats are related with that smaller one are closer to the littoral, to the coast, to the continental coast, and it's different to the boats which are sailing far away from the coast, which are bigger. So it's more related like that.
That's very, very interesting. Thank you very much for that. Does anyone else have any questions? I have one more question, but I don't want to be the one asking questions constantly. Costa, do you have something to ask?
Yes. Juan, thank you very much for this very nice presentation. What I like to ask is about the difference between the boats that they are built dugout and the boats that they build with a skeleton construction. We saw that some of the boats, they have frames, and they have planks on top of the frames, but there are other boats that they are completely dugout. There is any difference between these two techniques, and how they build the dugout boats and the other with the skeleton boat?
Sorry, I missed the last part. I didn't understand well.
What I like to ask is if there is any difference between the two types of boats, the dugout boats and the boats with skeleton and frames on the construction.
Ok, thank you so much. Juan dijo que le ha gustado mucho la presentación, que muchísimas gracias. está planteando pues justamente los dos tipos de construcción que había, el dockout o el de skeleton, el dockout como las monóxilas per se y el del skeleton pues las más completas con varengas, enoles, quillas, sobrequillas, etcétera, y que cuál considera que son las principales diferencias que hay entre los dos tipos de construcción y pues cómo se puede reseñar.
Listo. Creo que, bueno, hay dos diferencias, como las primeras, que son las monóxilas, son las embarcaciones tradicionales, como en el continente americano, por lo menos. Eso entonces implica que desde antes de la llegada de los españoles ya existieran y ya se conocieran esos conocimientos de construcción. Entonces, en el primer caso de las monóxilas, salen de un solo tronco de madera. Eso implica conocer los árboles, el momento exacto en el que se van a cortar. Este entonces se tumba y se empieza a tallar. Ese proceso entonces de construcción se suele hacer en la montaña, en el caso de Colombia, en la Sierra Nevada y en la Serranía del Perijá. Pueden ser dos sierras específicas acá en Colombia. Eso entonces nos habla de unas relaciones distintas entre el espacio, el lugar en el que se construye y las herramientas. Ese conocimiento, después de la llegada de los españoles, continúa y sobrevive o resiste hasta la actualidad. Y como que viene de un solo cuerpo de madera, no tiene elementos, y eso ya genera como unas características específicas. Si quieres, traduce como primero toda esa parte y ya respondemos la siguiente parte de las otras embarcaciones. Micrófono.
Sorry, can you listen to me right now?
Yes.
Great. Sorry. So Juan is going to divide the answer for your question into moments. The first one is related with the dockout boat, which are traditional shipbuilding came from the pre-Hispanic times before they arrived before the Spanish arrived around the 15th century. So there were a lot of previous knowledge about to carry out this kind of building. So he said that right now the main difference will be like the kind of knowledge which are around this kind of shipbuilding, because it's more related with how to know how the trees grow through the life, how are exact moments to cut it and to start to build this kind of chips. And so they start to, I don't know how can I translate it, but they start to make the different type of they have to use this kind of tools related with how to live like dock out, right? So the simple the simple wood. So he also said that it's more related with the mountains of the north of the Caribbean, the northern of the country, which are related with the mountain of Cerijá and the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, like a big snow mountain and then up the north. And they how this kind of knowledge from these kind of spaces and how they use it through a lot of centuries is related with the spaces, with the tools that they use, but also with the raw material that they can use. So these three kind of relationship which are related and it still persists until today, because even when the Spanish arrived, this kind of traditional shipbuilding keep going. But after that, well, you will see a transition, and I think that he continue with this. Dale, Juancho.
Ok, y las segundas, o el segundo tipo de embarcaciones, se cree que entran hasta el siglo XX. Hasta el siglo pasado es cuando se empiezan a reconocer estas embarcaciones específicamente por influencia. Bueno, como que hay una influencia igual española en su momento, pero cuando se ve, sobre todo en la zona de la Guajira, estas embarcaciones es hacia el siglo XX. en donde se empiezan a reducir el tamaño de las monóxilas, de las embarcaciones tradicionales, y se empiezan a incorporar estas nuevas embarcaciones que vienen desde Venezuela. Generan entonces un proceso distinto. También es necesario conocer los árboles, la materia prima, para los diferentes elementos que la componen, pero esta está compuesta por elementos. Eso implica entonces que la forma de construcción, las secciones en las que se construye, son separadas y necesita de unos momentos determinados. Conocer la popa, la proa, la quilla, las cuadernas, como cada una de las secciones implica unos conocimientos que son apropiados por la comunidad y son perfeccionados por ellos a partir de las necesidades. Es muy interesante, pues en el caso de estas embarcaciones, porque son de mar. Eso implica entonces que las que van para mar adentro tienen que tener unas dimensiones, unas alturas que puedan sobrevivir a la altura de las olas, pero asimismo poder tener grandes pescas, que es como su función. Por eso también son grandes, porque el tipo o las pescas son de gran cantidad. Y la materia prima entonces, antes la buscaban ellos cerca a sus zonas de habitabilidad, pero por prohibición con los años han ido reemplazándolas y en la actualidad compran los constructores navales la madera en Río Hache, que es como la capital pues, de la Guajira. Entonces eso genera unas nociones y unos procesos distintos de construcción de ambas. Y que es, creo que importante resaltar al final, como que a pesar de que existen estas, conviven juntas, o sea, en la actualidad hay monóxilas, hay lanchas, y entran ahora como las nuevas embarcaciones fibradas en vidrio, que no sé cómo se dirá en inglés, pero podemos decirles como embarcaciones modernas, que son un nuevo tipo que más o menos se puede reconocer. Gracias.
So the second part of the answer is more related with how this through the 20th century will be like this kind of transition, because during the colonial and republican time, which are between 15th and 19th century, more or less, you can see both living together, like the dugout, and it start to this transition, because the terms that we usually use, like frames, floor timbers, bow stern, it came from this European tradition. So it started to have some influence of how you build your boat in this part of the country. But through the 20th century, you see like the conjunctural point where it exactly happens, and you can start to see from a lot of pictures and a lot of old archives how you can see like this obvious transition. And of course there is a influence from the Spanish shipbuilding through all these centuries, but in the 20th century you start to see like a small number, a smaller number from the dugout boats. So he says that it's important to understand that, as he says before, like it's important the space, the tools, and the knowledge, and how you use the specific materials. It is also necessary to know all this kind of stuff through this new shipbuilding, but it's more specific. It's a specific, more specific knowledge related with how do you build the bow, the stern, so many specific aspects, because you can start to see people which are specialized working on this. So it's mainly based on the needs of the communities, and in this case, coast communities from the Caribbean. They see, of course, you can start to see this how they build these boats for using in the sea for fishing, but it's different from the lakes or the continental waters, because you start to realize how they start. This specific knowledge is based on which are the utilities, and also how this knowledge start to transform the last century, mainly on how you get the raw material, because you don't only see wood in shipbuilding, but these new materials that are used, of course, with the motors and the engines and everything, but also how they get the material. They don't grow it, they don't harvest it. They rarely go to the capital of the department or the state, we can call it Riohacha. Is the capital of the state of La Guajira, the department, and they start to build with this kind of specific knowledge these different boats, but not gathering, but or growing this kind of trees, but buying it around this site. So it's like they exist and they live together through all these years. But nowadays you can see like a huge difference among the I don't know, how can I say it, the amount of boats which are made with modern materials and those which are still building with wooden.
Thank you very much.
No, thanks to you for your question.
Thank you.
That's all very interesting. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Based on what you were just saying about the changing of the boats and the construction, I had a question regarding the shipbuilders. I was wondering, I saw you had several pictures of them. How are their numbers going? Like, are their numbers of local shipbuilders reducing? Do the young people want to learn how to make these boats in the area? And would the craft ever be like in danger of, like, for example, having no one who knew how to build these boats?
So, sorry, it's related with which are still surviving these kind of techniques.
Shipbuilders, yeah.
Shipbuilders, young shipbuilders start to, okay. Entonces, Juan está preguntando que cómo pues a partir de las distintas fotos que ha mostrado los pescadores, pues uno pues cómo comenzaría a inferir realmente si son tradiciones que se están perdiendo y si todavía existen entre jóvenes constructores navales como la herencia, ese tipo de conocimientos tradicionales para construir o no determinadas, este tipo de embarcaciones.
Ok, sí, como que es un elemento como fundamental dentro de la investigación y que fue parte de mis intereses, que es un conocimiento transversal, y se puede ver por lo menos en las edades de los constructores con los que tuve el privilegio de hablar, y es que la mayoría ya son adultos mayores, y hay una ruptura, o lo que yo considero como una transformación, una ruptura generacional entre estos constructores navales tradicionales y sus generaciones futuras. En donde considero que hay una serie de elementos que han dejado o han permitido la pérdida o han llevado a la pérdida de estos conocimientos. Uno de ellos, pues en principio, son las afectaciones medioambientales que hay en la región por empresas multinacionales o compañías multinacionales que han generado pues afectaciones en el medio ambiente, y esas afectaciones junto al cambio climático, pues, y la pesca, o sea, son como tres elementos: las multinacionales, el cambio climático y la pesca industrial, generan afectaciones en el ecosistema. Esas afectaciones en el ecosistema reducen la pesca y por ende, cuando los pescadores van a pescar, valga la redundancia, pues lo que pescan es muy poco. Entonces este se vuelve un oficio que no es rentable o no es tan rentable a pesar de que se sigue practicando con gran medida. Sin embargo, entonces, la función del constructor naval se reduce porque hay cada vez pues menos embarcaciones. Y por ende, como la pesca no es tan útil, los jóvenes buscan otros trabajos, buscan ir a las ciudades a estudiar, buscan entrar a estas multinacionales, empresas de plátano, por ejemplo, y este conocimiento se va perdiendo. Entonces, hay una ruptura generacional, los jóvenes están entonces luego interesados por otras cosas y son muy pocos los que han heredado estos conocimientos. Esto también hay que asumirle como un cambio o una innovación en las nuevas embarcaciones, que pues genera como que no haya esa continuidad. ¿Por qué? Porque se empiezan a producir industrialmente nuevas embarcaciones que son traídas de otros lugares. Entonces, para finalizar, como parte de la investigación, pues lo que busca es, primero, reconocer sus conocimientos tradicionales como comunidades indígenas, la importancia que poseen, Y dos, visibilizarlos, tanto nacional como internacionalmente, para reconocer esos conocimientos tradicionales en donde se relacionan su cosmogonía, el medio ambiente y sus saberes tradicionales, y asimismo empezar junto a esta tesis de investigación y a futuro a trabajar por un reconocimiento y una protección patrimonial de estos conocimientos tradicionales. Esa sería como una mirada futura.
Sorry, I hope that I gathered everything. So he said that is a key aspect of his investigation, a kind of a generational, yeah, like heritage rupture, which are going on right now. Because as you see, as you pointed out, there is a clear difference and a clear range of age among the shipbuilders, and there is clearly empty and a clearly loss of knowledge related with this kind of elements. And Juan said that is that he thinks that because it's a key aspect of his investigation, he started to realize through all these years how there are some like conjuncturals topics related with why is this happening, why are these kind of knowledge is they are losing it. And he pointed out at three main aspects. First, the environmental change caused by the climate change through all these years. The incursion of this kind of multinationals enterprise around the Guajira department state, and how they all these process are parallels are together, mainly through the last decades, and also with the industrial fishing which are happening right there as well. So from this from this aspect they start to there are a few fishes around to fish. So this is not the through the last few years the communities start to still go to fish to survive, but not as a commercial or an economic mainly activity for their survival necessities. Because there are few resources, a fewer amount of people will start to work on it. So the young people start directly to work to the multinationals through this kind of industrial fishing, and they don't start to work with their fathers, their mothers, their grandfathers and grandmothers, and they start to lose different. They start to work in a different kind of perspective. And that is one of the reasons that they start to search work in other spaces, but not with their families to go to ship or to commercialize something around this side of the Caribbean. So one of the main objectives of Juan as well, besides to point it out, these kind of factors which affect, which are related not only with the Caribbean but with the whole planet, he wants to start to fulfill this kind of empties, this kind of we in the center of the country are around of different parts of the Caribbean. They don't know about these kind of things. So how is important to try to get a better perspective to understand not only the traditional shipbuilding but all the things that happen around it. So try to put it in the focus to the national and international perspective, how you can relate not only the shipbuilding but also the cosmogonic, the religious, the social perspective which are around it. So it's kind of try to, like you say, to have an holistic perspective of everything, not only based on the material, not only related with the climate change, but trying to understand everything in an integral and an integral perspective, and trying to understand what is happening, why it's happening, and in which are the key factors which produce this kind of phenomena. So I think that is mainly this.
That's extremely interesting, and well done for doing that. You mentioned from the beginning the traditional knowledge that you're trying to research and bring out of these communities, and that's a very good thing to do, especially because of all of the factors that you mentioned right now. So that's really great. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Juan? No?
Meanwhile, I was answering, because I was also a listener, I'm familiar with the Juan investigation through these years. But of course, when I listen to you talking about how you see this kind of common aspects related not only with the Caribbean shipbuilding, but also with the Mediterranean one. And so I was thinking how, through the presentation, I don't know, and it's of course a discussion for Caterina and for Juan. I was wondering which do you think are the key aspects which you can connect between this kind of approach to the traditional shipbuilding in La Guajira, but also in the Mediterranean, but not only because the colors or the eyes or these kind of things, but more related, which I don't know, it is maybe obvious that the connection is related with the colonial times and how in 4 and 5 centuries, a lot of Europeans lived or fight or commercialized through the Caribbean. But do you think that there is another key aspect related with this, or how do you think that is working?
To me, just from hearing that case, which is very interesting, I think, as you said, there are some other key aspects, like, for example, like the commercialization and the sort of like almost losing the local character and the local activities, cultural activities, because of the modern way of living, which at the end of the 20th and towards the 21st century became kind of like a thing everywhere. I think that's a very key aspect, and that links, of course, to like the climate change and the changing environment. And even you mentioned the lack of fish. That's a problem also in the Mediterranean. So that changes the activities of the fishermen, the need for boats. And I think there's a lot of aspects, despite the very far away geographical locations, the different cultures and different like histories. There's a lot of, if we look at local communities and traditional communities as they actually have a lot of parallels and things to associate with. And that's very interesting because it helps prove the point that, for example, we have to preserve these cultures and these traditions. The traditional boats, the traditional shipbuilders should be helped. And it helps also understand the environment. What you said, there's a whole cosmology behind these sort of activities. And it's very interesting, in my opinion, that there's so many similarities in faraway places like that.
Entonces, Juan, le estaba preguntando un poco que cuál creía que eran los aspectos que por ahí se podían
Similares.
vincular exacto,
Ajá.
pero no solo per se de la construcción naval tradicional mediterránea o en este caso
De Grecia.
de La Guajira, sino como en perspectivas más integrales y que por ahí sobrepase la conexión simplemente de que porque aquí hubo unas colonias europeas, pues por ahí eso conlleva a que haya esa conexión, ¿sí? Que es obvia pero irremediable y por ahí tiene otros aspectos y lo que ella considera a partir de esta presentación, que es la que más la ha familiarizado con el tema y que le pareció muy interesante, lo volví a reseñar, es que por supuesto hay muchos aspectos vinculados a lo que nosotros mencionábamos, a lo que usted mencionaba, pues sí, la comercialización, las actividades culturales, pero cómo comienzan a vincularse otros aspectos realmente estructurales, espaciales, medioambientales, como el cambio climático y cómo esto produce también en el Mediterráneo ciertas afectaciones, como la falta de pescado para subsistir para algunas comunidades que persisten de ello y cómo ella concibe que todo está conectado, ¿no? Que en realidad es muy evidente cómo más allá de una conexión geográfica o más allá de este tipo de actividades que ambas son marítimas y que responden a cierto tipo de construcción, pues también se vincula a las concepciones que ya existen, a las percepciones de a las percepciones de las comunidades locales y cómo existen múltiples paralelos pues que a lo largo de la se reseñaron y que se están discutiendo ahorita en ese espacio y justamente todo esto aterriza a un aspecto clave en ambos escenarios y es por qué preservar, ¿no? ¿Por qué preservar esta cultura material? ¿Por qué preservar estas tradiciones constructivas? ¿Por qué preservar esos conocimientos? Y pues con un objetivo pues que termina siendo global, ¿no? Porque uno comienza a ver conexiones o sea, tanto que existen allá como que existen acá concebidas a lo largo de los siglos.
Creo que hay como para responder también, hay como dos elementos, como aprovechando tu traducción. El primero es como la importancia de esta idea o de la teoría de actor-red, que es la que manejamos, y es entender la relación constante entre el medio ambiente, los objetos, las personas y bueno, y los animales que se encuentran en ese medio ambiente, en donde pues como toda la teoría, uno no tiene mayor importancia que otro y todos se encuentran interrelacionados. Eh, y donde uno afecta o influye o tiene la capacidad de influir en el otro. Y esas relaciones o esas redes que se tejen, creo que las comunidades indígenas en este caso lo entienden muy bien a través de su cosmogonía, porque la forma en cómo ellos conciben, la comunidad guayú concibe ese origen del mundo, es porque un mar tiene un nombre, porque sus vientos tienen nombres, porque cada uno de los animales dentro de su proceso de formación de mundo tiene una importancia. Entonces, ese como un aspecto clave. Y por otro lado, también como aprovechar que precisamente esta aproximación etnoarqueológica lo que me permite es desde esta mirada antropológica, desde esta aproximación a comunidades que han resistido a más de 400 años de colonialismo y que sus conocimientos sobreviven hasta el día de hoy, me permite comprender o aproximarme, quizás con un par de transformaciones, a esos objetos materiales. Entonces, que esa es también una apuesta metodológica que estoy haciendo y es entender los objetos arqueológicos a partir de objetos del presente y las relaciones que éstas pueden llegar a concebir, que son elementos que en otros casos, como en las investigaciones que hemos realizado en grandes embarcaciones españolas o de otro tipo de aproximaciones, no son posibles. Entonces, que estas comunidades hayan resistido todo este proceso de colonialismo es más que suficiente para entender la importancia que poseen estas investigaciones, las aproximaciones y como las afectaciones que estas han tenido también, que creo que es fundamental como resaltarlo y visibilizarlo continuamente. Thank you.
De un segundo, pero encender esto suena más.
Tranqui, tranqui.
Si algo con lo del final me ayuda porque me quedé sin tinta y estaba
Va,
anotando
me
con
dices
otro.
cuando acabes y yo te repito.
Perfecto. So sorry, Katerina.
No worries.
So they are like two aspects with one would like to answer related with my question, but also with what you answer, and it's related that this theoretical and interpretative and conceptual perspective that we are currently working in Colombia since a couple of years ago, and other parts around the world, of course, which is related with the actor networking actor. I don't know the exact word to translate it, but it's kind of trying to understand, try to put in perspective how all the elements around some particular space, some particular landscape are equally important. So it's related with the environment and the space and the objects and the people and the relationship that they build among each other and the different knowledge that are, all these aspects are key aspects to understand every phenomenon around this kind of social process. So he said, like, because you were answering like how there are a lot of connection related with what is happening, how is it related, for example, the climate change, which is not a specific point phenomena, but it's a global phenomena, and how everything is start to get sense, to have sense when you try to understand this, but not because of the scientific knowledge of some anthropologists, archaeologists, but because of the local, the indigenous communities. They have this kind of knowledge like very clear. So it's like we start to realize since a couple of years or decades ago, like, oh my God, everything is connected and everything is equally important and everything is have a particular relevance and of how you build a society, how you build a boat. But like they start to get it in a better perspective, and he considered that is also a key aspect because they understand this really well. So it's like you start to make a horizontal creative way of to create knowledge. So it's not like the scientific go to La Guajira and say like, is this very important? because this or this, but they also know it since a lot of years, a lot of decades, a lot of centuries ago. And it's related once again with the cosmogonic perspective and how they start to understand this in a better way, not only through the material things, but through in the non-material things. So that is the first aspect. And the second is related how can Juan conceive it here in Colombia, because he's not only finishing his archaeology degree, but he's already since a couple of years ago an anthropologist. So how this ethnoarchaeological perspective to understand the shipbuilding in the Guajira communities is like he can gather and put together different tools from both disciplines, which are very close right here in America, and how you can start to understand through these disciplines the persistent, which like this is related with the question that Costas asked before, and how there is a persistence through the centuries, even with all the bad things that happens through all the year, right here, right at the north of Colombia, and how it persists, and how one can understand not only through archaeology but to our anthropology and in a general terms from the ethnoarchaeology, what is going on all these years, and why they preserve this kind of knowledge, even if it changed from dugout to a skeleton boat, and how one can understand through the materiality, how one can understand from these contemporary wooden ships or ships in general terms, to understand these past phenomena, like so how the nowadays objects can become an archaeological point of view, like I don't know how can I translate, like a material to analyze this. Yeah, so the nowadays objects are equally to important like to all these old boats, because there is something very particular in this area, is that like one say you date these kind of ships through the 20th century, but before this, at least in Colombia, it's quite, because of the tropical and the Caribbean condition, it's very hard for the wooden dugout, the dugout boats, or in general terms, the wooden ships are well conserved. So it's try to understand this phenomena from 4, 5, 6 centuries ago, and try to understand from the knowledge which is preserved until today, but only through the nowadays material and the nowadays boats and the nowadays engines and everything, and how eventually everything is connected in this perspective.
Yeah, of course, and it's really good to examine something in this sort of longue durée kind of perspective, because it gives so much more knowledge about the place and the people living there over time. So that's really good and very interesting. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay, if not, we'll thank again Juan for this really interesting presentation, and thank you Jesus for all of the translation. It was really good to hear all this information from Colombia.
Thank you very much.
The next seminar is going to be on the 4th of May, and we're going to have some insights now from Asia this time. So, and of course, I have put the link for the YouTube channel on the chats for anyone who wants to watch previous talks, or if you want to share this talk with anyone who couldn't attend very early in the morning in Colombia, feel free to use it. It's going to be probably either tomorrow or like in the next few days uploaded.
Thank you.
Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Bye.
Thank you so much for the space. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye.